So guys, I want to introduce you to a young man that is really famous, legendary in the Amazon community. Lots of people know him, and if you don't, you're about to know him, and you're absolutely going to be thrilled, as I am, that he's a member of Amazon Seller Tribe. Obviously, when I heard he was coming into Amazon Seller Tribe, I really counted that as good fortune, and kind of as a vote for what we're doing here to help create the most seven-figure sellers in the industry. What we didn't know is that he was circling around very, very closely to an amazing milestone in his sales. And so we're going to deep dive on that and talk about that. But Jonathan, first of all, tell us a little bit about you, you and your wife, where you live, and how you got started in Amazon, because I want people to understand that anybody who will really put forth the effort can build a life-changing business on Amazon.
The only secret is you have to have a beard. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway.
It's the beard?
I grew it out. It's where all my powers are. I'm like Samson. If you cut the beard,
it's gone.
I start talking about eBay and not well. So I actually started reselling with Lego, not on Amazon. I sold on a website called Bricklink. And basically we would part sets out, and I actually got into that because I was selling sets. And when I was selling sets, I actually was in a Target one day. I was a Taco Bell manager, working the night shift, and I would get my paycheck, my $10 an hour paycheck, and I would go over to Toys R Us, and I'd buy a couple Lego sets, and I'd put them in the closet. And then when they went up in value, I would sell them on like eBay or whatever. And one day while I was there, I met a guy who was buying all the Lego. And so I got to talking with him. And some of you may have seen it. I posted a video of a huge Lego that he has. And that was him. So that was, I don't know, 10, 11 years ago, a while back now. And so he and I started selling Lego together. We started, flipping things. And probably around 2014, I saw a YouTube video on selling books. So I started selling books, and we were shocked. Like, they sold so well in 2014. Books were just flying.
I know.
And so in 2015, I had gone through, late 2014, I had gone through some really tough time in my life, and I was just in a really bad place. And I was like, well, if I'm going to be unhappy, I might as well just work, throw myself into the work. So I started a second job, and I was going to sell more Lego. And then I saw a YouTube video on selling books, and doing RA. And I was already going to all these stores getting Lego. Right. So I was like, okay. So I started just scanning, and I remember my first deal was beef jerky. I found a deal on beef jerky at the Dollar Tree. They were normally $4, and they had been marked down to $1 because they'd gotten them at the Dollar Tree. So I ran all over the place buying up all this beef jerky and shipping them in. And that was back in Walgreens and Rite Aid. I was doing all those. And I sent it in, and I was just like, the first FBA shipment I ever sent in was Lego, other than books. And I was just blown away. Like, it all sold in 10 minutes. So I was pretty hooked after that. So,
and that was 2015?
2015 was when I did that. Yeah.
Awesome.
I was working I went from Taco Bell to working for T-Mobile. I was a call center rep. And I sent my first non-book shipment August of 2015, and I quit my job November of 15. So I've been full-time.
Wow.
So yeah,
it didn't take you long to see the potential.
It didn't. Well, and I have people ask me all the time, how do you know when to quit your job? It's a really simple answer. When you're losing money by going to work each day. And I got to the point within 2 months, I was losing money going to work. So I was like, well, I'm sitting here at a job, and I didn't hate my job, didn't love my job, but certainly I didn't love it enough to lose money doing it. So
Sure. Smart. So you started really pounding it then in 2015, and 5 years later, you just
I did. That was the Q4 where I.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that Q4 was where I earned my stripes. Funny story. If you see the basement that I'm in right now, the background. So this was my buddy's house, the one I met in Target that day. I actually bought his house from him. But in 2015, this is the house where this basement's where we did our first shipment. And it was downstairs. So we would prep everything and then run it all upstairs, dump it in the van, drive it to UPS, come back. So we would shop Op 12 hours, prep 12 hours, pile of boxes down here several times just to keep up during Q4. So yeah, Q4 15 was fun. A lot of fun.
So, yes, so you definitely earned your stripes, right? I
Yes.
mean, you've been in the trenches for sure. What kept you from quitting?
To be honest, I understand, but it never crossed my mind. Like, it was so easy compared to anything else I'd ever done. Like, I loved it so much. I'm like, this is just, the money is just incredible. I mean, I made more in a year in that Q4 than I made in a year, and that was literally with just the card and a couple grand in the bank. Admittedly, it was a little easier in 2015. I suggest more caution now, but yeah,
Right, right.
I can't say I ever even quitting never crossed my mind. The first time I sent that shipment, saw how fast it sold, I was like, well, I told my buddy at the time, I said, this is the kind of thing that if we don't double on now, we'll regret it the rest of our life. Like, I would rather leave it all in the field. Yeah, it's the best.
You're speaking truth right there.
The best time to start selling on Amazon was 2013. The second best is right now. So
Come on.
it'll just
Come
get
on.
harder.
Come on, that's exactly right. I mean, that's exactly right. And we just see that it gets, a lot of people talked about, Jonathan, you remember this because you were in at about the same time growing that I was, when people started talking about RA being saturated.
Right. RA was dead in, 2016?
Yeah,
That it died?
remember that?
I do. I do.
And aren't you glad those people thought it was saturated?
Right. Well, Cynthia Stein, who's a good friend of mine, was one of the main people who said it was dead. And so every time I'm on a call with her, it's really dead, but it's a good thing I'm still paying my mortgage.
That's right. That's right. Beyond the grave, he speaks, right? So
Right.
yeah. So a lot of people thought RA was dead. Amazon started bringing in some other restrictions, the IP complaints, those sorts of hurdles we had to jump. And when the Chinese sellers flooded into the marketplace and all the counterfeiting flooded in the marketplace as well, things changed very quickly. And those who weren't willing to adapt did fall out. Or they went on to try PL or try some other things and probably have since fallen out. Or maybe they did make their fortune in PL or other ways. But those of us who stuck with arbitrage has seen those changes, and you just learn to be very fluid with them, don't you?
You do. That is part of the game. Amazon will keep throwing curveballs. And I'm not by any means someone who's just like a blind follower. If Amazon became, well, that's how I see eBay. Like, eBay's great, but I don't know if I would want to, like, if I had to earn a living on eBay or go get a job, I would have to really think about it. Not because eBay's a bad platform. My wife sells a lot of stuff on it, but at the end of the day, it just became not worth it. And to me, Amazon still is so worth it, and it has not reached that point. If it ever did, I would reconsider. But the pros so massively outweigh the cons that I try to see the curveballs as, like, the thing that keeps the competition at bay, and kind of just see it as if I'm willing to jump through the hoops, other people aren't. And
That's
it was
right.
interesting. Like, it was super easy in 2015. We just had no money. 2016, same story. 2017, and then like 2017, 2018, it hit critical mass.
Yeah.
And it got really hard there for a while. And I think that's kind of where they separated the men from the boys. Anybody who was just needed huge margins to be, viable, fell away. And so now it's kind of not insane profits, but if you're consistent and you work hard, you can definitely make a very, very good living. And this is where I want to give a shout out, because I talk to people. If you are coming from me, like as a Taco Bell manager and a call center employee, the worse your job is, the better off you are, because it is so much easier to replace a call center job than it is like kind of like that Bible verse about how it's harder for a rich man.
That's
Well,
right.
the less money you make in your day job, the easier it is to do this, because you don't need to replace that much money. I could replace my Taco Bell job like 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week.
Yes. So it's amazing to think that in just 1 week, you can make the profit that you were making in several months as
Absolutely.
a manager. And
Absolutely.
and in 1 month, Q4, for example, we saw some numbers in when we rolled out the opportunity for Q4 War Room, where you can make an entire year's salary, average American's annual salary, easily in just 1 month. And many people make six figures multiple in 1 month.
Oh, without question. I don't want to brag or anything, but if I had posted my screenshot, and Torrin's a friend of mine, I was a little higher than him, just a little bit higher. So yeah,
What?
you absolutely can. There was actually 1 week, Q4 of 17, where I made almost as much in 1 week as I would have at a full-time job at Taco Bell, which admittedly was $10 an hour and was awful, but you know.
But amazing.
Comic character though, you really appreciate all of it. Like I can tell you every little thing that money allowed me to do, and it was some small stuff. But being raised with a poor family and then making $10 an hour at Taco Bell,
Right.
the first time my car made a weird noise and getting it fixed was not an issue.
Right.
That was a good day.
Yeah, that was a good day.
That was a good day.
And how does it feel now that you have just crossed the threshold of a whole nother level of selling? And I want you to tell me about when you looked at your seller app or you pulled it up on your screen, wherever you were when you did this, when you rolled over the odometer to the big 2.0.
Well, I have to say, full disclosure, so I partnered with that guy. He and I worked together for about a year and a half, and I actually partnered with another seller in Nevada, and I actually moved to Nevada for a year and a half. So me and the Nevada seller, we got even higher, but it was two of us. So, you know, split down the middle, you know, we did almost 4 million, but not quite, and split in half, it wasn't quite there. So this is the first time I've done it just me, you know, without a business partner. So, I mean, I have a great team. You know, I have a lady who's worked for me, Karen. She's been with me for 4 years.
Wow.
She's, if anything, I have to tell her because she'll text me at like 2 a.m. and be like, John, I saw a deal on such and such website and they're 20% off. And I'm like, Karen, you've worked 15 hours. You need to sleep. You're good. I appreciate, you know, she's very finding products. She's more stressed than I am. So, you know, I feel like the credit has to be spread to the team because I don't sleep on boxes or sleep in my car outside Walmart's anymore. So at least not often, you know, so I got to give some credit there. Right. But they do a lot of the sweat equity in this 2 million.
But it was kind of worth it in the beginning to do that, wasn't it?
Oh, without question. And each year, you know, we tiered up as far as better vehicles. I could show you some, what's the word, like a lineup of vans that slowly got less and less junky. Now I have a brand new, I bought a brand new Ford Tranche for an extended roof. You can fit 600 pairs of shoes in it, and it's awesome. But that first van, it was like hop out, put a few parts on it, and it came with a heated bumper as much time as we spent pushing it. It was tough. Yeah. I started with a Buick too, and I would have the back seat like loaded to fun times.
Yeah, no, it's we've been in the trenches. You've been in the trenches, definitely. I want to congratulate you on making $2 million in sales and being the one to do it. You're not doing it with, like I work with my sister, and she's out in the warehouse right now, actually, because we're backed up with shipping. And I couldn't do it without her. I couldn't do Amazon Seller Tribe and our business without her. And for you to do 2 million, and I want you to tell me about your team that you've built. I want people to understand that this really can be done lean and mean. It doesn't have to be done with a giant warehouse or a large staff, which can be very intimidating for people. When they look at big numbers, they think they have to have big numbers in everything. Right. So let's talk about as you grew, how did you know to grow into your staffing?
Well, I think the big thing is you have to earn your way up each one of those rungs of that ladder, you know, unless you're just independently wealthy. And, you know, if you're like Gary and you have, you know, millions of dollars in insurance money socked away, then that's different, you know. But if you're a normal person like I was coming from a call center, you know, first of all, you got to remember for about 6 months before I started, I worked 2 jobs. And then I would come home and basically watch 2 videos. I watched every YouTube video ever made on Amazon selling, which in 2015 was not that many. Now it would take years, but then there was not that many. And basically what I would do is I would work my regular job, and then I'd work my second job to get capital, and then I would watch videos, and then I used all my vacation time for the mornings I would oversleep because I had been up till 2 a.m, you know? So I did that, and then, you know, I did everything, like you said, as lean as you could, no hotels. We bought like a van for like a couple grand that was falling apart. You know, we just did everything we could to cut costs.
Right.
And then, you know, and to be fair, if I had researched hotel rewards points a little more and maybe sprung for like the occasional Holiday Inn, because boy, a shower helps after 15 hours of sourcing. But anyway, so I think it's really just a matter of, I quit my job when I was losing money doing it. I bought a van when I was losing money not having one. I bought a better van when I was losing money not having one. So if you just ask yourself at each step, is it a luxury or are you losing money? If it's a luxury, you decide if it's worth it.
Right.
If you're losing money, the business decided that it was, worth it. So I did hire my first employee after about, I guess, 9 months. I hired my first helper, and that was just a prepper. And we would actually drop stuff off. I rented a house with her that she lived there and she paid the rent, but I helped her a little bit, and we would drop stuff off at her house.
Interesting.
So, I mean, my cost was fairly low,
Yeah, really creative ways to do that. Some people look at their situation and they're like, well, if I had what Jonathan had, or if I had what, Gary had, or Gay had, or Andy had, then I could do it too. But I think each one of us need to understand that we all came from a something. You're starting out in the basement and you're carrying every package up the steps. Notwithstanding, how'd you get product down into the basement?
And as you can sort of tell by this, I'm not a skinny person. It was not pleasant.
Was not
narrow stairs.
It was not a fun thing, but you plow through because you know that at the end of the day, the rewards are worth it. And you're building something that starts taking on a life of its own, doesn't it?
Without question. And the scale of the opportunities are incredible. Like, I never guessed, I came from a family of 7. My dad worked for a ministry. We lived on like $30K a year, the 7 of us.
Right.
And it was tight. The first time I could afford to sit down in an Olive Garden and pay my own, and actually could afford it, was just like, wow, so this is what being wealthy is like, But yeah, it's definitely very nice. And I met my wife. We've been married, let's see, over a year now, just I guess going on a year and a half. I actually met her at a reselling conference. So I say I got a wife out of the deal too, and my 2 beautiful stepdaughters. So it definitely wound up being, reselling definitely provided a lot of value for me.
Yeah. So now you got rich.
I did, in every way.
You got rich. So what would you think? If you looking back on your journey, what would you think would be the place where you put your foot in a snare and you're like, rats, I shouldn't have done that. I'd really like to advise people not to do that. Is there something that comes to mind right now that is that, oh gosh, moment?
Looking back, if I had had the wherewithal to, get into private label or something like that back then, because I still don't do it, it probably would have been really smart, because everyone tells me it was way easier back then, I could have followed Andy up the ladder. So that would probably be something. I love reselling. I have watched many hours and many courses of private label, and I have a hard time motivating myself, which is a character flaw I'm either going to overcome or just never do. But I think probably that willingness to jump into something like that, because it's just going to get harder. Every year it's going to get more competitive. And then I think at a smaller level, penny wise, pound foolish in some things. Labor is very expensive. Hiring people is very expensive. Space, not so much, at least not here. So I wish I could have made more money than I spent on a warehouse. Even that first Q4, if I wasn't lugging stuff up and downstairs, like even a storage building would have probably been smart,
Right. And we've actually advised people to do that.
I think really just evaluate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, and to look for those creative opportunities to change your situation that's limiting you.
Well, you always have to be thinking outside the box. Like, I have a friend who does Uber, and I trained him on all my stuff. So occasionally I'll be like, hey, when you're Ubering over in this part of town, hit this Walmart for me. Or, hey, we've got some FBM orders. They're a little heavy. Could you swing by and run a van load, and I'll pay you your Uber fee? Or my personal favorite, back when Walmart was just, well, I'm sorry, I know Walmart's still good, but in 2016, it was insane. They did all some. I spent all day in Louisiana and Mississippi going to all these, yeah. And so we rented a storage building there, loaded it, middle of nowhere, Mississippi. And then we had a guy drive all the way out there and all the way back a couple of times, taking it all to Chattanooga. So, yeah, always think outside the box. Oh, can I tell you my favorite think outside the box story?
Yes, please.
This is the time I went back in time.
Okay. All right. I've got to hear that.
All right. So if you've ever shopped Walmart Black Friday,
mm-hmm.
The way that it works is everything's in plastic, and on Thanksgiving evening at 6 o'clock, you rip the plastic off, you grab what you want, and you head for the rest. So what we did was, this year we were chasing these Lego buckets. And as you know, if you do this, Lego buckets are not so good that everybody grabs them all. But if you don't grab them in that initial rush, you can get 40 of them, but they will not be there in 10 minutes, 20 minutes. There's not a big line for them, but people will swing back by and grab them. So what we did was, we had a guy He was in Walmart. 6 o'clock hits. He loads his carts up. He rushes there. He jumps it, pays for it, gets out the door. That's a tip for Black Friday. If you can get to the register quick, everybody else browses it so you can get out quick. Loads his car. Drove, because I came up with this. We picked a Walmart that was right by another Walmart that was across a time zone. He drove across the time zone and hit another one at 6 o'clock when they went down. So I was like, I sent a shopper back in time. Not everyone can say that.
That's pretty good. That's pretty
Right.
good. You gotta end up in a different time zone to make
Back to the future of Amazon.
Back to the future. I can see you in that sports car. Really, you hit you hit on a point too. We're entering into that season where time is of the essence. Speed can make a difference whether you're profitable or not.
Oh, yeah.
And first to market wins the game most often, especially when it's in the stuff that's being highly sought for Christmas sales. So,
I just saw that Jim's question here. He said he asked about prep.
Yep.
So I eventually upgraded from the dropping stuff at that lady's house. The first time I dropped like 500 pairs of shoes, she was like, we may have to, this was like, she couldn't walk in her living room. So we had to upgrade from that. So I rented a space that was 1,200 square feet, which out here you can get for like $800. And that's something I will say, depending on where you live in the country, you have a lot more luxury versus those who are living like, if you're living in San Francisco and New Jersey, it's a little different.
Right.
But so we picked up that warehouse, and I do still do all of my own prep. I have several people that work for me now. I actually have shoppers in a couple of states, and we prep it all in-house, other than I do have one prep center that I have a relationship with out in Texas that only preps for a shopper out there and another shopper I'm training in Oklahoma City. Most of it we prep here in Chattanooga at my warehouse, which is like a 2,000 square foot retail storefront.
Gotcha. Other than yourself, how many RA shoppers do you usually use throughout the year?
So this year I scaled it up because, like I said, I came back from Vegas. I got married. So last year was a little bit of a transition year for me. So this year I've been scaling it up right now. So right now I have a shopper here. I have a shopper in Philadelphia. I have a shopper in Fort Worth, which is like part of a company that I work with. And then I'm in the process, like he's still flying out here. I'm training a shopper in Oklahoma. So he'll spend the rest of this year shopping here with us and just flying back and forth. And then once we've got him up to snuff next year, he'll be shopping there. So I guess 4 would be the answer. COVID made it a little wonky. I had one part-time guy who, because of some health issues, I don't know if he's going to come back or not, but 4 for sure. And then, maybe a 5th.
Gotcha. And what about online arbitrage? Do you do online arbitrage?
So online arbitrage, I do some. It's definitely a weakness, which I joined the tribe. I do some of it. My main issue is that it always seems like when I find a lot of OA deals, it seems to be like when we also find a lot of RA deals. So we just get really behind. Whereas in the weeks that we're a little slow and we could use it, there's no deals on either for some reason. So I do a little bit of OA, but I'm probably 90% RA. And then maybe like 4% wholesale and 5% OA.
So you've got to kind of pick and choose. Sometimes I turn that light on. I had to turn that light on because of the sun coming through there at an odd angle, and now the sun went down finally. So it's giving me the best light now. Guys, if you have questions for Jonathan, jump on like Jim did and shout out. I'm thinking of Shah Jahan and his wife right now. They were in a home and they've just prepped something like, and Shah might not have these figures exactly correct, but it's going to be pretty close, 53,000 units this year so far, and hit 1 million in groceries. So almost completely groceries. Which is
and now is that like wholesale grocery or RA grocery?
Yeah. so we're going to have them on a webinar to talk about that. So one of the questions Marianne is asking is, how do you pay? Can you explain how you pay your RA buyers, or maybe even, and I'll add to the question too, how you wish you were paying your RA buyers? Sometimes those are two different things. Sometimes, we kind of get into agreement.
So that's one thing I would suggest to everyone in your audience. I have been pretty decent about, but only because I with one partner and some people he had hired, I kind of saw the opposite. you would be better off starting someone low and working their way up, because you cannot work someone down. Like, that's just bad etiquette. Like, and I say this ethically and as a person, you better be truly failing before you lower someone's pay, because that's not cool. I've never done it. I hope to never do it unless, I was
Right.
going to lose everything. That being said, so my shoppers per piece that they bring in, we do mostly shoes and clothing. So they have a criteria they have to shop within, and the pay actually does vary. And that is because, like, Karen, she actually makes less per item, and she knows this, than my shoppers in Philadelphia, but she has a looser criteria. And so she actually gets way more items because her criteria is a bit looser. Whereas in Philadelphia, they make a bit more per item. So I try to land somewhere between $1 to $2 an item, just depending. But the average is about shoe and clothing that I do. Now, if it was like a hard good, like if I sent them to Walmart and said buy 100 of these, obviously I would not pay that. But for shoes and clothing, you're doing like discount stores where you're scanning a bunch of items. That structure works because you're talking about gas and vehicle, and there's a lot of costs they're absorbing.
Yeah. And you're talking about onesies and twosies too, a lot of times.
Exactly. Whereas, like, when Walmart did their big clearance, I told Karen, I said, go out, spend as much as you can, because she was supposed to be off, and she worked 4 days in a row all weekend, 15-hour days, and I told her I'll give you 20% of whatever you spend
Right.
for her. She made like $3,000 in 4 days.
Right.
But you're talking about toys that are normally, if a toy is normally $100, it's marked down to 25. I pay her 20%, so
Yes.
I paid 30, and it was all delivered to my warehouse. So she makes awesome money, but she does an awesome job. So we'll make deals like that. Usually Q4 toys, things like that are more hourly or commission based on spend. But for shoes and clothing, we do per item, and that allows me to kind of get a wide variety. And I experiment with different things, like Oklahoma Shopper, and I'm maybe do something a little different to try it out. But that's the general system. And what I do is, to answer Christine's question, so the guy in Philly, they have I pay a prep guy per piece there as well. They work for another seller as well, so they kind of already know I didn't have to train them. And then the guys in Fort Worth, same deal. I pay per piece prepped, and I pay per piece shipped. And the Oklahoma guy, he will drop off at the Texas Prep Center, and he will also have a prep line in his garage. So we'll kind of combo those.
Gotcha.
And to answer your question, the thought of training people is hard.
Yeah, go ahead.
The thought of, to answer your question, Jim, training people in other states is challenging. I'm obviously absorbing some plane tickets to fly him out and work with him. It just has to be a good scenario. Like, this was a guy who he worked for another seller, and that seller ultimately went all wholesale and let him go. And I knew he was an awesome worker. I knew I was getting primo, so I just had to train him to my system. So,
Right.
I try to mostly hire people that have already done it a little bit, or I train them here in Chattanooga. I've so far never trained someone who's just totally green. You never know. So obviously, if you're newer, start where you're at.
So you're doing mostly shoes and clothing. What scanner do you train your people to use, or do you let them choose what scanner they use in store?
When you're saying scanner, you mean app or you mean actual like scanner?
The app. I mean.
App. Oh, I use ScanPower.
Okay.
Yeah, I do everything I buy list everything into ScanPower, and then I upload it into Inventory Lab. So.
And why do you prefer ScanPower?
So, first of all, with ScanPower can be a little bit clunky, but Paul, who runs ScanPower, he tends to be pretty available at a lot of the conferences. He tends to be pretty responsive. Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Well, Paul, if you're seeing this, hello. So Paul is very responsive when it comes to if you have an issue. And so he's really adopted a lot of our feedback to make a better app. And what I do is, and I still like Inventory Lab only because I like the reports.
Right.
I just like that clean interface.
Yeah.
But for actual functionality, ScanPower is better. And we do everything with a buy list. So we just upload the buy list, and then that way, if your shopper makes the buy list, they shop. My VA goes in overnight. She double checks their buy list. She compares it to what they put on their credit card, so that I can track. I have someone verifying how many pieces each person brought in. And then when the prepper does it, they just have to print labels because all the information is already in Inventory Lab once that buy list is uploaded. So I'm simplifying a little bit, but that's the basic. Oh, and I do supply everyone with ring scanners, or I'm working on that. The little scanners that go on your,
Yeah, so you like the ring scanners, huh?
They do. I don't have a strong opinion either way. When I was doing it, I just did it with the phone, so I don't know. But Karen absolutely loves hers and stuff. So.
Yeah. So I could never get the hang of it. I don't know because I've got the technology curve I got to get over, and I just never got the hang of it. But I think we had some friends that did a scanner challenge, and they went head to head to see whether the phone or the ring scanner. So but the real point is, is you got to use whatever tool works for you in the stage that you're at. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to be investing in tools when you're still struggling to generate capital.
Well, I've still never used one, and I found then. And back then, yeah, I never bought one for myself. I only bought it from hers because she saw another seller with it and wanted it, and that was, she had worked for me 3 years already. So I was like, I guess you've earned, the. But yeah, I think you start with the bare minimum and work your way up for sure.
Yeah. Other questions, guys? You're welcome to hop on here and ask those questions of Jonathan. When you've got a $2 million seller, you can pick his brain, and don't be shy. Ask questions that you feel like would be pertinent. Are there categories that you stay away from, Jonathan, that you just feel like, no, it's not worth it to me, or it just doesn't fit the model of business that I want to be in?
So I am not someone who, basically what I do is any brand I sell, I have to approve. And thankfully, because of that, I've gotten one IP complaint in the last 3 years, and which is pretty low for my volume of RA. And that was on the same Ravensburger puzzle I think we all did. But
Yeah, yes.
it seems like everyone's like, oh yeah, I heard from them too.
Yeah, same.
But what I do essentially is I'm in a lot of Amazon Facebook groups, and I consider this a pro tip because anytime I get a new brand, so my shopper will text me and they'll say, hey, we want to buy such and such brand. Let's just say the brand is Speedo. Then I'll do a Facebook search, and usually if they like to file IP complaints, one of the Amazon groups I'm in, because you can just type into Facebook, filter by posts in your groups. Somebody's talking about it and complaining about it. So if they mention a brand and then I look, no one's complaining about it, I go to the listing. If the brand's the only, stay away. If there's no FBA, I'm a little leery. I start checking other listings by that brand. So I'm very careful. And for that reason, I kind of stay in my lane because my shoppers don't want to wait for me to approve one-offs. Now I let Karen do some of her own because she's in a lot of the groups too. But the rest of the shoppers, they have to run it by me first. So I do my shoes, my clothing, my toys. I do some beauty. I'm in some of the higher beauty brands because, I was grandfathered in, so I do like my beauty, but just a little bit. And there's a lot of brands I'm gated into. But I guess that's primarily what I do. And, if it's a good home goods deal, I'll look it up, if it's a brand I'm familiar with, but I'm much more cautious because I'm much more out of my comfort zone. Electronics, I will do. Again, it has to be something I'm familiar with. Who doesn't love video games? I mean, if I could do it for a living, video games for a living, they're small, they're expensive, they're everything we love. But even from what I understand, even the stores don't make much on video games. They're just there to sell the, guides and accessories and all that. So there's no real wholesale way unless you're buying a closeout, and that's
right.
A challenge.
Yeah, that's pretty challenging. So,
Sometimes.
so Legos was what got you started. I was going through Walmart today. I had to pick up some stuff from my mother. And so I always make every store pay me. I don't go into the store unless I'm going to make it pay me. For example, I had to pick up her medicine just a little before we jumped on, and had to go to Walgreens. I got out fast, came back, and I was like, oh man, I didn't make that store pay me. And so I went online to Walgreens and just manually sourced an OA buy and made the store pay me back. So I'm at Walmart, I'm making the store pay me, right? And I cruise through the Legos aisle. And there's a lot of open spaces on the shelves in Walmart's Lego aisles. Got any intel on that?
So as we all know, which I will say, I made a down payment on a house with the profits from my Lego stash because I realized that in the tribe that Trevor is the king of holds and all that, and I certainly would not want to, in any way besmirch that. But I hold quite a few toys myself, and so
Yeah, you do.
I was extremely lucky in that I kind of saw luck, favors the prepared, but I had seen the shutdown coming. Like I knew there was no way Amazon would continue to allow customers to suffer at the expense of sellers. Or so basically, I could tell that at some point they were going to stop allowing inbound.
Right.
So I had 1,000 Lego sets on hold, and I looked up a bunch of them, and I opened a shipment for 4,500 Lego sets. And I opened up that shipment and uploaded the batch to Amazon, which creates all the shipments, 4 hours before they shut it all down. And since the batch was uploaded, I got to spend the next 4 days shipping all that in. So having a bunch of FBA-able Lego right at the height of COVID was very, very nice.
Sweet.
But
yes.
If you sold Lego at all, you know why there's holes at Walmart. Lego is struggling. They've said they've rerouted a lot of their shipments from the EU, which is why you got to be super careful. You might see some with like European writing, writing in another language, which is not a good idea because your customer's going to think it's a fake. And yeah, Lego's struggling, so the stores are too. By the way, Gay, I'm just going to tell you this because it's a thing of mine. Lego's not a word. The plural of Lego is Lego, like moose.
Oh, really? Okay.
Right.
Like realtor or realtor, right?
Well, see, now I didn't know that one. Realtor is not a word then, huh?
Yeah, realtor is not a word, but realtor is. Okay, so Legos is not a Legos, it's a Lego.
Lego, the plural, the only time is if it's the possessive, like my Legos. But yeah, the plural of Lego is Lego. So you either bought 15, Lego, or you bought 8 Lego.
So people who are really kind of obsessed with getting ungated in Lego, when they come into, I mean, several people are that way when they come into Amazon Seller Tribe because they hear about people making a lot of money on Legos. Legos, Lego my Legos. And they really.
My wife said it just to torture me, so it's fine.
Yeah. So, but they really kind of hold that up as kind of one of the toy, holy grails of toys. But you're saying that with Lego company struggling, there might be an end to this Lego mania anyway.
I would have a hard time picturing the mania ending, but I will say this: if I was a brand new seller right now and I had limited capital, I don't know that Lego would be top of my list anyway, just because most of the Lego that I buy it on clearance or two, and I couldn't afford to do that early on because I didn't have the capital. It's not as often now you buy Lego and immediately flip it for a profit. It happens for sure, but it's a lot less. Now this Q4, who knows? It could be crazy. I don't know. Right. I mean, I'm assuming there'll be some weird places that have a little bit of Lego, the Krogers that have a small Lego aisle, and you'll be able to make some money. But normal years, I make most of my money from Lego by holding it for, a year, 2 years, whatever. So
right, you really kind of stock market Lego, don't you? I mean, that's really what you do.
I do.
In that.
I do Lego, and I've been experimenting with Funko. I was telling Gay when we couldn't go live that I bought a house. And the two things about this house was that it was big and it had a pool because we've always wanted a pool. So it's 4,500 square feet. It has a sunroom for our eBay stuff that my wife sells in. And then the rest of the house, I have a Funko room. I have a Walmart clearance room. I have a Lego room. And I'm just experimenting, basically. Funko is something that I was able to get some deals, RA, with some of my, secret sources. But Funko for about $2.50 each. So I bought about 3,000 different ones. So I'm going to see how in 2 years those do. But yeah, it is moving more towards a hold for 6 months, hold for a year game for sure, which is not helpful if you have limited capital, but if you do have some capital, it can be handy.
Right. And if you're savvy with the right buys. So it's not a slam dunk deal like it used to be. I mean, really, it used to be, a lot of money in Lego. And I think if my memory serves me correctly, Toys R Us was a great source for it. So we don't have that with.
I could tell you some Toys R Us stories. That's for sure.
Tell me a Toys R Us story.
When Toys R Us, well, first of all, I'll tell you my saddest Toys R Us fact. When Toys R Us went bankrupt, Dan Wentworth just messaged me and said, "Am I missing you?" I don't think he saw the link. Gay, could you send Dan Wentworth the link?
Yeah, I will. I will.
I
want him to see.
If the legend is going to be on, I have to,
You better buck up, bud. Up
yeah,
your team.
I think some people just didn't see the Zoom link.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when I started doing Toys R Us, we had a lot of tricks and things to really maximize that, and it got to the point where we were spending some incredible money. Like one time, and this is with 4 people and a Penske, we spent $53,000 in Toys R Us in a single day, and that was just going to Toys R Us's all over Atlanta. And
Wow.
we finally got them to the point where they knew that if we skipped their store, they would not make their numbers, because the other stores would make their number and they wouldn't. So they would like call the other store and warn us. When we got there, the other store would already be pulling stuff for us. So
Wow.
it was pretty awesome. Yeah, we would truly crush it.
So they rolled out they rolled out the red carpet for you.
They did. They were awesome. But the biggest downside of Toys R Us was we had at one point $14,000 in rewards points, and we were sitting on 8,000 of those when they went under. So
Oh man.
$8,000 down the tubes, and you could not spend more than a certain amount in a week. So I couldn't just like run up there and spend it all when I knew they were going.
Right.
But the employees were amazing. They were so nice. Although it did lead to kind of a terrifying moment. I was in Atlanta about to get on an airplane, and all of a sudden airport security yells at me by name to get back. And I turn around, and this guy goes, "Hey, man, you used to buy all those toys at Toys R Us when I worked there." And I was like, "Oh, hey, that's good." But for a minute, I was like, it was interesting.
Like, what did I do? Right.
Oh, yeah. But that is where you have to really, like, I would send them pizza. We brought them, you remember that year when Hatchimals were just like,
Oh, yes.
impossible?
The
I brought them-
Hatchimal. I like to call it the Hatchimal effect.
Yeah, I brought them a Hatchimal and gave it to them to raffle off to the employees.
Oh.
So, and those are when they were like $100.
Smart.
So they
Yeah.
were the one group of people who truly appreciated what I was giving them, But we would bring them Chick-fil-A nuggets or
Sure,
pizza,
sure.
we would try to always
Right.
just
Now,
to say thank you, because they were amazing. I miss them.
I suspect that you're probably still doing something of that sort now too in the stores that you're sourcing at. Do you in your pursuit of legendary
Dan Wentworth.
in your
I see him in the chat now. I'm gonna,
in your pursuit of the legendary Dan Wentworth, do you do outlet mall shopping?
So here's the thing. I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's about 2 hours to the nearest outlet mall. We go to all the big cities, but we don't do them as much because Dan, it's awesome. He can send a group of people, or I have to have one person drive 2 hours. So in Texas, we do some outlet malls. In Philly, they tend to be pretty competitive, so we don't really, and we don't really that much here too. Like we have a few lower end outlets that we do, and occasionally we'll go into like some more niche ones. But like the main Nike, Adidas, and all that, we really don't do that much here, just because it is such a far drive to get 10 pair, 30 pair, whatever.
Well, the rumor was that
but we have in the past for sure, back when there were no limits.
Well, the rumor was that you don't do that because you're afraid of Dan Wentworth.
That's what it is. It's that fear. You're in the store and you're like, is he watching me? No, thankfully Dan Wentworth, he's pretty far away from me, so we don't run into too many issues with that.
Yeah, you're not competing with him on that. What kind of expansion goals do you have? What's your vision?
Well, I will say that I don't know how this is felt about in the tribe, but I'm a very competitive person. So if you tell me, besides Dan Wentworth, who I'm already talking about, that so-and-so is, headed for such and such million next year, then that will immediately, being a penny more will become my goal. I love a good competition.
Okay. So if I say Dong Li is just about to roll over 3 million.
And that's what I'm at. And I bet he is. Dong Li is
So if I were to say that, not that I am, but if I were to say that, you would be like, that's I'm after this guy next, right?
I would think that's the goal. That being said, I would like to for sure do 3 million next year. 4 million would definitely be awesome, but at least 3. Unfortunately, COVID, it's a little bit hard to predict things, but all things being equal, and if there's a way to do it, it would be awesome for sure.
Yeah. So what do you like to do yeah, Dan, I can't hear this words of wisdom.
Now I've got Perry Coughlin in here heckling me.
Heard he pads his numbers. Dong says he's overrated. Well, I see you have your fan club now going. Here we go. Yeah,
I know my buddies
the
finally saw
boys
the
are
link.
back in town. So now it's time for the show to start.
We didn't record all the bad stuff I said about Perry earlier, right? That
Right.
wasn't on a recorded
Right.
call.
No, that wasn't. I actually,
Really admire Perry. I look up to him.
yeah, yeah.
No,
That's
Perry's a
actually
great
what you
guy.
said. That's actually what you did say. So, Vic Ramos says, is there a particular tool or a moment where you learned something that helped you scale the most? The place where it was like from here, and then all of a sudden it went way up to here. Was there a moment of, maybe it could even be a category,
Well,
pivotal thing?
when I first started, I was at a tiki bar for Jason T. Smith's meetup in Vegas. And I was chatting with a guy an RA seller who no one really knew at the time, named Leron Hirschkorn. And Leron told me about Nike clearance outlets. And that was very helpful because our existence at the time. So we had those pretty hard. So that was kind of what really turned us on to more than just regular outlets. So that was pretty big for us. And he taught me a few things about how to do outlets. So that was awesome. That was back when he and I would still trade RA bolos.
Right.
But
so in your area though, they don't have
yeah, you got to drive. Yeah, you got to drive a couple hours. Yeah.
Oh, you do from your
So
area. So, like there's not
thing,
anything within shooting distance of, I don't know, 400, maybe 500 miles of me.
the great thing about Chattanooga is also the worst thing. No outlets in Chattanooga. The great thing is within 2 hours, I can be in Huntsville, Nashville, Knoxville, Atlanta, Birmingham, and then in like 4 or 5 hours, obviously you can get to a lot more. But you know, I'm like in the center of the spider's web, but unfortunately, there's nothing right on me. But if I'm willing to drive, there's definitely a lot of opportunities, and that's what Karen does. She just goes, a different city each day, basically.
Gotcha.
And rotates it around.
Gotcha. So she's road tripping.
I think another thing that I wanted to scale the most is if I could do it over again, I would have bought a bigger vehicle sooner. I lost a lot of money racing back to unload, then racing back again. And
yeah, but that's an important.
And I will say this, and I've seen this happen.
No, go ahead. I was going to say that's an important point because you said it earlier very wisely. I think you need to get a new vehicle when you know you're losing money keeping the old vehicle.
Yeah,
staying in the limitations.
And also, if you're like me and you were raised with very little money, you should probably consider, before you buy that new Lotus or that new sports car that you want, you better have at least one good cargo van. I think Shaw's asking what kind of vehicle I would get. Oh, also, and Perry can give us some tips on how we feel about cars and car payments. But anyway, what vehicle should you get? Shaw's asking. I personally like my Ford Transit a lot. I bought mine a year or two ago, and I was able to get it for about $36,000 out the door, and that was brand new, no miles. So I realize but you can get used ones for much cheaper, and I think that's still a pretty decent price for a good working vehicle. And the great thing is, but with a vehicle over a certain weight and with no back seats, meaning a cargo van, you can potentially fully depreciate the thing in a single year. So definitely something to talk to your accountant about as well.
Right.
I would love to have a Sprinter. If I ever go back to doing more shopping of myself, I might do a Sprinter. It's a little pricey, but boy, it would be comfortable. But I think probably the Sprinter was my answer. But really, if you're buying a used one, get the best used one you can find of anything. Because I started with like used minivans and worked my way up. So I will say this: don't go so cheap that you're always losing money for vehicles in the shop. I learned my lesson with Dodge Caravans.
Yeah, exactly that.
I'm having a nervous tick now from the memories.
Shaw says he's running his 1992 Corolla station wagon to the ground.
And that's how it should be. That's how it should be. If you have a dependable vehicle that you can fit a lot of stuff, my Buick LeSabre, it held me. It could fit a lot of stuff for a car, and I ran it as long.
So let me ask you this: how do you know your van will hold 600 pairs of shoes?
Because we've absolutely tested it. Yeah.
All right. So that's not just a number you threw out there,
right? A few on the passenger seat, but I am rounding. I think the exact number was something like 573 if you didn't fill the passenger seat, and we left a few gaps for like personal possessions. So yes, I rounded a little, but it would be 590 to 600. Yeah.
And
also it depends on the size of shoes. Timberlands are like flip-flops.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. What do you think is probably the brand that is maybe underrated, if you don't mind saying that? And if it's a wrong question to ask, I think sometimes we think that Lego, Nike, those are the holy
Yeah.
grail for arbitrage, and especially RA. Um, but what is one that's often overlooked that comes to your mind, that newer sellers might, need to take a look at?
Hmm.
Is there
That is
something?
brands are hard. I usually more say areas, but I've definitely done well with some of the brands in the sporting goods category. There's certain things people are not as familiar with in the sporting goods category. I'm trying to think of a particular brand that's just really underrated. That's hard to say. I sell a lot of Speedo. Yeah, that I would suggest that you look up the outlets that you have that not a lot of other people have. Like I spend a lot of time just on Google Maps saying, how many of these are there, how many of those are there, and then if you can find something that only you have, like there's outlets that are only in certain cities, or maybe they have 2 or 3 locations. Um, be a really high end brand of bras that was only in St. Louis, but unfortunately that outlet went out of business. But
Yeah,
if you can find a store that's only for you, that is your underrated brand because you have access that other people don't.
come on.
Oh, here's an underrated brand. Keep an eye if you're in the outlets. Check the Ghirardelli store because every now and then we'll find a really good deal on clearance chocolate. We don't do it too often, but when we do, we found some good deals.
Hey, watch what I'm going to do here. Sweet. Okay. That
That's
actually,
really good,
yeah,
Gay.
that was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All right. And Jim called that a nugget. It's not a chicken nugget though, Jim. That was a gold Ghirardelli drop right there. Hey, that's smart. So you know what? I have never ever scanned Ghirardelli that I know of.
No. Yeah, we bought some
Never
Christmas
been on
stuff
my
from them.
radar. So
Well, we I will be honest, we did not go in there looking to resell. It just worked out that way.
you just hit upon it, didn't you?
And no, Dan Wentworth, I will not break down what percentage of my sales are by each brand I
Um,
sell.
so yeah,
Unless you'd like to post that as well.
yeah. Could you break down what percent of sale you
And where
make?
you buy them, yeah, Dan's
Yes,
messing with me.
and where you buy them, and oh,
What
actually,
coupon to use?
and would you go ahead while you're at it and just give us your exact criteria that you give your sourcers as you send them off and then into the wild blue yonder? Just your exact criteria, if you don't mind.
That's the problem. Do
Yeah,
I have an exact criteria? Again, and I realize that Karen, she gets special, like she's authorized to push the boundaries if she sees it. Like Karen will get in, she will read her Keepa charts in the store on the app, and she will make decisions based on seasonality. I typically say like a new shopper, let's try to stay under 400,000, but I will happily go up to 1 million if the numbers make sense and I see the seasonality and the profit on rank. That's in shoes and clothing.
right.
Um, Toys, it really depends for me. I try to stay probably under like 100,000 to 150,000. But if it's like a one-off rarer toy, it'll sell eventually if it's
Sure.
under, 500,000. Right now in toys, I've been buying ones with no rank because if it has reviews, I know that it's just like a glitch.
Right.
Um, Grocery, I shouldn't speak on there. People know more than me. There's a lot of things that we try to look for that I'm probably not thinking of right now. But I would say the big thing is, looking at the reviews. I would prefer it not to have like an awful fits as expected. Perry would be the person to speak to on this. He half of his criteria I got from him, but yeah, I try to just and then as you sell more things, you start to learn as well. Oh, apparently someone got auto approved in Ghirardelli, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Dan
So
wants phone numbers for the contacts at each of my stores. I can give you my store. I can give you my Toys R Us managers. I'm still Facebook friends with Dan.
there you go. Dong has a really great question, actually. Best improvement or development this year? Did you feel like really advanced you, helped you?
I mean, I think I tried to take it, when I had COVID and I mostly did shut down.
Now, wait, back up. You just kind of toss that up casually. When you had COVID,
Well, no,
when
well, you remember
COVID
when we
hit?
all decided to try to shut down to see if we could slow it
Gotcha.
down? So
Yeah.
I didn't ship anything for like 4 to 6 weeks. So I kind of took advantage of that time to get more organized, streamline a little bit with my systems, work with my VA on, that accountability a little bit. So just getting more organized, I suppose. Still not where I want to be, but getting better about some of those things.
Do,
But
do you feel like you have a hand pushing you on the back, on your back, saying, go faster, go faster, go faster?
I mean, I think to some degree I'm the hand, but yeah, I mean, there is always a level of like, I genuinely feel like what we're doing, RA, will probably not last forever. It could be 10 years, but I want to make as much as money as I can and be as close to, maybe not retirement, but, some level of comfort before I get out. So
Sure.
I guess I see it more as like the best way I could think to describe it is, where you like have those tubes like at carnivals where you stand and they shoot the money up all around as you can as it flies by.
Right.
That's how I feel about Amazon. Like, it's so hard to grab sometimes, but I know at some point they're going to turn the air off, and I got to have as much money in my pocket before they turn it off.
Yeah.
Just for RA.
That really is a great visual of, and I think what a lot of us feel like as we're moving forward. We don't know what we don't know, but positioning ourselves as smartly as possible and keeping our cash in smart places. And then also, since our good friend Dan Wentworth is on here, a nod to him again. And Dan, thank you for those kind words. He says, John is the most unassuming, knowledgeable seller I know. He really is. He's very understated, but I'd like to just get in and pick his brain one-on-one where I can ask him questions I don't want the rest of you know the answer to. So,
That's why we were late going live. She spent about 20 minutes quizzing me, and the other 10 minutes bragging about where Gary was practically
tech problems. No. So what does success mean to you now? Give that parallel. It's two sides of the coin from where you started as a kid growing up, 7 people in your family, ministry, salary. Contrast that to where you are now and what's happened in your life.
I think, once you get out of that initial, I don't want to say panic, but that initial like survival mode, I mean, I realized that one day, when I die, no one is going to care how much I sold on Amazon. So I think success for me is kind of probably sounds, and I certainly am not, I'm so far beyond what I ever pictured as a kid growing up at the level that I was, just the ability to just go buy something when I want it is just astounding. Like, I still get excited about it sometimes. And the fact that when I wake up in the morning, that the fact I don't dread going to work on Sundays, the fact I get to network with awesome people, the fact that if me and the wife just want to, obviously COVID notwithstanding, if we just want to go somewhere, we just go, we have the hotel points and the airline miles and everything. So I would say probably
and the freedom. You don't have to ask permission.
Exactly. I can just do it, So I think for me, I've really attained the level that I always wanted. For me, it's more just a matter of now of success is just working on that long-term plan so that whether Amazon's here or not, me and the wife can have a comfortable retirement, help the kids get a leg up and, go from there. So
right.
That's kind of a roundabout way to answer it, but.
Right. Tell me about your stepkids. How far are they away from flying away and the nest and maybe going to college, or you guys needing to help them kind of get their little feet on the ground?
So those are two separate questions. My oldest she's 18 and she's in college now. How long she is from leaving the nest? Let's see, 40, 45. No, it may be a lot. So when I remodeled the house that we live in, I gave her a very comfortable bedroom suite. So she's going to be hard put to find an apartment that's an upgrade from that. So it's going to be a while, I think. And then and so I think she still has a few years, but I've been working with her, and she's going to try to skip a grade because she wants to start college a year early. And I've been trying to help her with her honors classes, and it's amazing, Gay. For being a multi-million-dollar seller, I'm incredibly dumb. Like, book learning is not my, like, I'm like, I do the accounting myself for a very large business, and I could not help her with math if I had to.
Right. Well,
She is advanced beyond me.
especially the math they're doing today, right? Which makes no sense. So Stacy Wren is asking, do you currently
Exactly.
sell,
Mangled math.
Stacy says, are you currently selling on any other platforms?
Well, I know I mentioned I met my wife at a Amazon or at a reselling conference in Austin, Texas, and she was a full-time eBay seller when I met her. So she liquidates all of our returns. Occasionally, when we get a bulk buy, she'll cross-list it on eBay, but that's about it. I have the approvals for Walmart, but thus far I have not messed with it.
You know, I think your buddy Dan Wentworth said something pretty wise one day when he said, why would we until we max out the platform we're already on?
Yeah, again, it's one of those, as long as the money keeps being here, I feel
Right.
like I got to grab as much of it as I can. And I would hope, like, my goal is maybe in a year or two to get to the point where even some of the, higher level stuff that I do, I could hand off to somebody, maybe hire like an assistant. And then I could kind of, stray into new directions. But I'm considering a few brick and mortar business ideas. I've thought about, I'm doing more real estate, things like that. So I don't know if I'll expand on e-commerce.
So when you were a kid growing up in the midst of that big family, do you ever think you'd be sitting here throwing out terms like multi-million-dollar seller and investing in real estate and terms like that?
I always thought I would invest in real estate, even though I didn't really grasp how I would do it. But no, I definitely didn't. I will tell you this. I don't know why, but I've always measured my numbers success based on a conversation. I was in a flight late one night into Atlanta, and I was talking to a guy this dude flies in and he does construction work for Wendy's. And basically what he does is he's the guy who flies in, oversees the contractors, oversees the deals, and once the store is done, he leaves. And he was telling me numbers, and he said, well, a good Wendy's is about 1.9 million a year, and a bad Wendy's is about 1.6 million. So from that on, I will always build my success on like how many Wendy's I own. So that's just kind of how, I don't know why, but that's kind of the paradigm I use. Let's see. Shaw is asking what percentage would you keep for your Lego Funko long-term investment? So to answer that question, Shaw, is probably going to depend on capital. Thankfully, Lego can be moved pretty quick if you need to. So it would really come down for me on like, if I found an amazing deal, on a real estate deal, I would do it. Until then, and I will say this, we have learned with Lego, and me and my buddy Brock, who I would love for you to meet sometime. He's an amazing guy. He's much more numbers driven than I am even, but he's very Lego packed. And we learned that 18 months to 2 years is basically the sweet spot. And every year it gets a little more harder to find enough clearance Lego. So I would imagine that that'll organically drop down for me. And buying full price Lego to hold absolutely can be done and absolutely has value, but it's more challenging.
Right. So you really need to be looking for something that potentially, has a really good ROI now, but you're going to sit on it and get an even better one.
Exactly. Like I could happily share with you a couple of full price Lego sets that I think in 2 years will probably be pretty good, but it's a straight gambling. Are we, I don't know. Do we really need more straight gambles?
I don't know. Sometimes it's kind of fun to think about it. I got 3 sitting right over there in the corner by that chair over there, and I'm gambling on them. I'm gambling. I think they'll go to about 300 before I put them on I'm good. I'm going for 300. I'm waiting for 300.
Well, I have no problem sharing. If you have the Lego Central Perk Friend set, how long they're going to keep that in production, but when it does retire, I think it'll be phenomenal.
Central Park Friend set because it's
the TV show Friends,
right?
Central Perk. Friends is a hugely popular show to begin with,
Right.
And then when you add on the fact that it crosses over with Lego,
right?
And go and look at the number of reviews on that Lego set compared to other Lego sets, and that whole theme, Lego Ideas, has been incredible. Anyway, like I held like 50 of the Beatles sets,
right?
And those did really well for me. But
yeah,
if I was going to speculate on a full price set, that would be one of them.
Interesting. Well, I may speculate with you at least on a 1 or 2. I'm not a very good speculator, to tell you the truth. So we'll see. I don't have the guts that some of you younger guys do. I'm needing to play it a little closer to the chest right now. So, yeah.
I would I would go for like Barnes and Noble, 10% off with a membership, tax free if you can get that, just to build a little cushion.
Hedge your bets just a little bit. Yeah, Jim says that was a speculation nugget. Is that a thing? No, Jim, you just invented that term. Thank you. Well, guys, we're almost out of time. We actually are out of time. This is the guy that the next time we have an Amazon event, live event, I expect that Jonathan will be like the honey hive, and all of the honeybees will be surrounding him, trying to get him to drop a few more gold nuggets, gold nuggets of honey and Ghirardelli and Lego and Funko and other things like that on us. But one of the things we wanted to accomplish today is, number one, bring Jonathan out and help you get to know him. I've gotten to know him by this interview. I actually met him, I think, a couple of years ago, but just in passing, just a whole group of people together and just passed by. Dan, I think you were with me. I think we all were together down in the Young Conference. Perry, I think you were there as well. And so that's when I met Jonathan, but I haven't had a chance to really sit down and talk with him until today. And we got off to a rough start, doing our really great role modeling of how to push through super hard problems that get thrown at you. But we finally went over here live in Zoom, and we'll definitely put the recording up. If you're just now jumping on, or if you got on in the middle or whatever, we'll get the recording up so you can hear the whole thing. The main thing we wanted to do today is just turn this guy loose and just let him just leak his brains all over us right now, just so we can just see what's been going on inside of there. And then secondly, to celebrate his $2 million seller status as a entrepreneur on his own, not as a partner, but as an entrepreneur on his own. And we're super happy that you're in Amazon Seller Tribe, Jonathan. Couldn't be more pleased. I personally am super happy because you took the time to message me one day, and it made me very happy.
Did I make you a few bucks, Gay?
You make me a few bucks, a lot more than that, I might add. But I appreciate you thinking of me. I just felt great that you thought of me. Normally the guys would be like, they message other guys, but Jonathan was like, I'm going to message Gay, help the old woman out, so I appreciate that. And I think that'll kind of get you some points.
If I can make a quick, I say, if I can make one comment on that, that is one thing I would really encourage just anyone in your audience. If you are messaging a new seller, like if people who have messaged me, and if you start the conversation with, oh, here's a good bolo, I'll be honest, the next time you talk, I'm going to be much more interested in answering your message quickly. That's just how it works. And so I got into that habit early because I didn't know anyone when I started. And so some of the people that I really looked up to when I first started, I would send them a bolo just out of the blue, and they would be like, what? And I'd be like, well, if you give value first, then, it's much easier to ask a question, or so I would strongly encourage other people to do that, because the person who just asks and asks, I'm always happy to help, but at the same time, there's minimal hours in the day, and it's Q4.
That's exactly right. Yes, that's the first rule of business success, is lead with value, and secondly, build relationships that last, and those can be very valuable, way, 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 way longer. Jonathan, thank you for being here today. There's a lot of people are going to be asking questions, but guys, you heard it from him. Lead with value. And
you don't have to do that with me all the time. I'm just saying it's a good general life.
You know what?
Amazon reselling.
There's nothing wrong.
And if you want to, I'll take it.
There's nothing wrong with doing that all the time. In fact, I led with value to just another seller last evening. I hit on something, so I just said, just want to pick them up. They've just kind of been going through a valley, so it's good to do that. So Perry, thank you for being on too and cheering Jonathan on or heckling him from the sidelines. Dan, appreciate you, and Dong Lee being on here too to heckle him from the sidelines. We got to keep him humble. Now that he's rolled over 2 million by himself, and we don't have even a gold lanyard for the multiple millions yet. So I was fixated on the gold lanyard sellers, and now all of a sudden people are popping into the $2 million zone. So we're going to get prepared for that. Of course, Dan Wentworth is going to come into the next conference with his lanyard clanking with all the medals that he has on there. From his seller status. We love and appreciate him. So Jonathan, thank you for being here. Once again, I'm sorry that Gary couldn't be on with us, and I have been sworn to secrecy, and I cannot tell you where he is right now.
If he's in a Chattanooga Walmart, I'm telling you, I will send people to Bowling Green and they will camp there. I'll pick it cleaner than the locust in the Bible. I'm competitive.
You heard it first here. This guy is tribe all the way. See, he runs in my tribe. He must be Cherokee, because that's kind of how we feel. Like, don't be sourcing in my stores. Don't come into my territory. Bring the tomahawk after you. All right. Yeah. Rosalind says Dan can. Yes. Yeah. No, we're gonna have Jonathan be Mr. T at the next conference. He's gonna come in clanking with gold at the next conference.
I'll let the wife wear it. Everyone knows she does the thinking.
You better give it to her. That's exactly right. So, okay, thank you for being here, guys. Let's enjoy the vice presidential debate coming up here in a little bit, or press as soon as I get this recording up. Listen to it from the beginning if you just got on a little bit later. Jonathan, we love you and appreciate you. Thanks for being in tribe. You're a number one warrior for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being our $2 million man.